There are few bassists in music history as influential as Larry Graham. His innovations with Sly and the Family Stone, Graham Central Station, and his solo material have left an indelible mark on the landscape of funk music and bass playing. Born to musical parents in Beaumont, Texas, Graham actually started out by playing guitar with his mother's band in his early years. He reflects on it being a hugely formative musical experience.
It was like going to the highest musical university I could ever attend because I learned everything there. I mean, I had to know enough before we started working together to be good enough to work with her. I mean, she traveled the world. And so she allowed me to play with her because I could, learn. And so it was a good training ground for me. I certainly learned more with her than I would have learned just playing in a little band, my own little band around the Bay Area,
While he was playing with his mother, he transitioned to bass, and in doing so would change the face of funk music forever.
We had a little duo, Moms and I. And for a while, I had my drummer playing with us, little trio, but that didn't work so well, so we went duo. But see, the thing of it is after we didn't have drums, it caused a problem. See, I kind of miss not having that backbeat and that snare drum, so I had to kind of compensate. I started thumping to make up for not having a bass drum, right? But now the snare drum thing, I had to compensate for that too. So I did a little thumping and plucking like thumb, thumb, thumb. And then you add the finger thing here. There.
What is now commonly referred to as slapping and popping on a bass guitar can be attributed to Graham wanting to fill in for the missing drums while playing with his mother. We can pick up on the influence of this technique further on in the video. It was around 1967 that Graham was recruited into Sly and the Family Stone. This seminal funk outfit was led by singer-songwriter Sly Stone and featured his brother Freddie Stone on guitar, Greg Errico on drums, Jerry Martini on saxophone, Cynthia Robinson on lead vocals, Vet Stone, Mary McCreary and Elva Mouton on backing vocals, and of course Larry Graham on bass guitar. Sly and the Family Stone were one of the most commercially successful and critically revered groups of the 60s and 70s. They blended funk, soul, R&B and psychedelic rock to form their own unique sound. And Graham played a crucial role in helping shape that groundbreaking sound. His bass playing was tight, at once both rhythmic and melodic, and elevated the already infectious and danceable grooves. Somebody's Watching You from the group's fourth release Stand is a perfect example of how prominent Graham's bass is, not just compositionally, but in the mix itself.
Close to the things that make you free. Never stop to think about a downfall.
Graham was clearly one of the most important parts of Sly and the Family Stone's sound. Another great example is one of their biggest hits, Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself Again, a single released in 1969 where his signature slap bass can be heard. Before we listen to that track, I first wanted to highlight this interview in which Graham discusses an important point, which is that he initially developed the slap and pop technique to replace the missing drums in his mother's band, but in joining Sly and the Family Stone he was now playing with a drummer, which was something that initially caused some concern.
I think the biggest concern was playing with a drummer again. I hadn't played with a drummer in years, And so, Greg Errico is such a wonderful drummer that, even though I'm playing the way I play, he didn't collide with what I'm playing. He actually played around me, so we never had any train wrecks or anything, He's just such a great drummer,
A shout out has to go to Errico, who, let's say, adjusted his drum parts so Graham's bass could take center stage. Take a listen to how minimalistic and effective Errico's drums are on the track. Graham also contributed vocals to the group, singing lead on a couple of tracks on their debut album, including the soulful Let Me Hear It From You.
Why don't you just write me a letter, and I know that I'll make it.
If you're enjoying the video, please consider subscribing. YouTube Analytics tells me that only a tiny percentage of viewers are actually subscribed. So if you're enjoying the content, and that does include you, yes, I'm talking to you, hit that subscribe button. One of the band's crowning moments was their performance at Woodstock in 1969, and despite being billed alongside heavyweight names such as Jimi Hendrix, Santana and Janis Joplin, Sly and the Family Stone's set was said to be one of the best of the festival.
I don't think we expected, especially as big of a boost in our career as we got after we played Woodstock, because no one actually knew that Woodstock was going to be so huge, you know, and internationally huge. So no one expected that, and that night we didn't really realize what was happening ourselves. But after the success of Woodstock, then our careers just took off.
While the band's popularity was soaring, many band members were abusing drugs and tensions were growing between Graham and the Stone brothers. In 1972, a year after they released There's a Riot Going On, the tension between Graham and Sly Stone erupted into a post-concert brawl and a convoluted mess which involved rumours of hired hitmen and Graham and his wife having to climb out of a hotel window to safety. Larry Graham was a member of Sly and the Family Stone from 1966 to his departure in 1972. Quick break to say that I'm very happy to announce that you can further support the channel by becoming a member. Down below next to the subscribe button you can click join and you'll see 3 different tiers of membership, each one with its fun little perks and price. There's also another button labelled thanks which allows you to leave a one-off tip to show your support and help the channel. Last but not least, I wanted to mention our good friends at Bellroy. They sent me this snazzy backpack, which is perfect for carrying laptops or iPads securely. It's spacious, has loads of compartments and pockets, and has really comfortable shoulder straps. You can check out this backpack and loads of other great Bellroy products by clicking the link in the description. After Sly and the Family Stone, Graham set up his own musical project named Graham Central Station, through which he released 10 records. With Sly and the Family Stone, the bass is musically close to the centre of the sound, but with Graham Central Station, that prominence went to another level because Graham was the band leader, the frontman, and the songwriter.
Well, Graham Central Station, even though it wasn't planned when I left Sly and the Family Stone, did become the natural progression to what we got into musically, and my bass became more prominent, me being the leader of the band now, as opposed to Sly being the leader and he being featured most of the time in Sly and the Family Stone. Now I was the featured vocalist in, as far as my bass was concerned too. I would be out front.
Tracks such as Love and Happiness and Hair illustrate how the bass was at the very centre of the group's sound.
Like hip and square.
Graham Central Station had 3 separate stints of activity, in the 70s, late 90s and then briefly in 2012, which for Graham leaves a gap in the 80s. It was during this time that he pursued a solo career under his own name. He released his debut album 1 in a Million You in 1980. The title track was a huge hit, reaching the top 10 on the US Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on the R&B charts. The record ended up being certified gold. What's surprising is the track attained huge commercial success in spite of Graham radically changing his sound. 1 in a Million You is a slow ballad. There's no slap, no funk, it's a real change of pace from Graham. In this interview he talks about how this switch initially worried the studio.
My first solo record, 1 in a Million You, actually, because it was such a departure from the Graham Central Station sound that the record company really didn't like it, and they did not want to release it. But I had a clause in my contract that allowed me to pick the single from my albums, and they didn't believe in it, but I did, and I went with 1 in a Million You, and it turned out to be one of my biggest records, bigger than any of my Graham Central Station records, actually.
Yeah. Of a lifetime and
I'll just mention it briefly because I do think it's worth mentioning that in the 90s, Graham also became very good friends with Prince, and the two often collaborated.
I went over to jam with him for the first time, and when I got up on the stage, to my surprise, like everywhere I went musically, he was like right there, like he'd been playing with me for years. And it caught me off guard because I didn't know he knew anything about my music. But as it turned out, he did, and we hit it off musically
like crazy. And that's how it started. And then we ended up moving to Minnesota, and I continued to work with him. We did the GCS 2000 CD, and I did some work on some of his CDs as well. And that's really how we hooked up. And since then, we just became like, best of friends, more like brothers.
So Graham had a long and varied career through which he left his mark on the music landscape and the bass guitar. Slapping and popping was a revolutionary innovation that widely expanded the tonal palette of the instrument, without which bassists such as Bootsy Collins, Flea, Bernard Edwards, Les Claypool, Marcus Miller and Victor Wooten wouldn't have the sound they're known for. The tracks Pow and Hair are golden examples of Graham's slap and pop technique in full force. Another highlight track is Turn It Out, which also leads to another important Graham-ism that influenced the instrument, the use of effects on a bass guitar. In this instance, it's a fuzzy overdrive effect. One of the earliest and most popular uses of this is on Sly and the Family Stone's 1968 hit Dance to the Music. As Graham sings, "I'm gonna add some bottoms so that the dancers just won't hide," just before coming in with a thick fuzzy bass line.
Add some bottom so that the dancers just won't hide.
I wasn't able to find any concrete evidence of where the fuzzy overdriven effect came from, but I would put money on Jimi Hendrix being a big influence. If we take a listen to how Graham talks about the legendary guitarist in this interview, he's clearly a big fan.
Jimi Hendrix was one of my favorite overall guitar players. I mean, of course, there's nobody that played like Freddie for what Freddie played. There's no way excluding him, but overall, Hendrix was my favorite. The lead and all the stuff that he did and his whole concept. I think he probably was the most influential guitar player of all times that I'm aware of. One time we were at this club in New York, this underground club, and Hendrix was there in the club. And as he was leaving the club, I was leaving at the same time, and he asked me, "Oh, hey, Grandma, why don't you come down to the studio and jam with me?" And Sly and the Family Stone, we were kind of like into not playing with other people at that time. It was kind of like a thing that it was an unwritten rule. We just didn't do it, right? And I always wondered to this day what that would have been like if I would have had the privilege of going in the studio and playing with Jimi Hendrix. Oh boy, I was so sorry I didn't take advantage of that opportunity,
So when you consider that Graham is a great admirer of Hendrix, who is of course known for treating his guitar with various effects, and you consider that Graham was originally a guitarist that moved over to the bass, these are definitely dots that can be connected. Take a look at this clip of Graham playing one of my favourite tracks of his, Earthquake, and you'll see what I mean. I feel like there's definitely some Hendrix to the way he plays. Hey guys, thanks for making it to the end. It's a real joy making these videos, so please do consider joining the channel as a member or clicking thanks. You can find both of those buttons under the video. Otherwise, if you haven't already, please do like and subscribe, and leave a comment of your favorite Larry Graham bass line down below. Thank you.